It was this time last week details were unfolding of the terror attack in Orlando. 49 people killed, 53 injured when a gunman opened fire inside a gay nightclub last Sunday morning. That gunman has been identified as Omar Mateen, a U.S. citizen whose attack was influenced by ISIS after he became radicalized. He was killed by police during the shooting. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, and the U.S.'s fight against the terror group seems at a standstill. CIA Director John Brennan says ISIS will likely intensify terror attacks around the world and confirmed that the two-year campaign to defeat ISIS has not worked. Further, he said the terror massacre in Orlando last weekend, the worst U.S. homeland attack since 9/11, shows ISIS is still working to inspire attacks by sympathizers who have no direct links to the group. His message is a stark contrast, it seems, to President Obama's upbeat assessment earlier this week, saying the U.S. is gaining traction on ISIS. So far, no direct link found between Mateen and the group. So does America need tougher surveillance to root out terrorists? And how should America deal with lone wolf terror attacks? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. Also, be sure to weigh in on Twitter and use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant, Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. So is the president doing enough, in your opinion?
You know, that's such a difficult question. This topic, this issue has evolved the entire 7.5 years he's been in office. The public wanted out of the wars we were in that we were in when he took office, and so he moved us away from those wars. Moving away from those wars allowed ISIS to proliferate in Iraq and Syria, and now we're stuck trying to battle them. It's such a difficult question. And then you have these issues like Mateen, who there's no really direct link between him and ISIS other than him saying that he attaches himself to them, but no direct link that he ever had contact with them before. And I want to start, Jackie, we'll start with you. How does the United States government identify someone like Mateen when he has no direct link to them anyway? It's fine to say we should be identifying these people. How do you do it when there's no way to know?
There were several clues about this young man that were given. The gun owner contacted law enforcement. Prior to that, several employers had contacted him. There were several things that he was doing. Even as a child, people were reporting that he had made certain comments, instances that they felt uncomfortable. And in some instances, whenever employees were complaining about them, he claimed that they were being racist against him because he was Muslim. So there were several clues about this young man leading up to this. The FBI had investigated him 3 separate times. We don't know the full extent of that investigation, but he was under investigation for quite some time. In January, we had to make predictions about what we felt was going to happen in 2016, and this was my prediction. Unfortunately, it's happening. I said we were going to have instances like this because I felt our president's foreign policy and the way he has treated this particular issue has been lacking. You see Senators McCain and you see Senators Graham have said the same thing. You saw his own State Department came out this week about his policies with Syria and his policies on ISIS, and they've condemned him and said that it's lacking and it's not as strong as they would like to see it.
Well, I don't know if it was a condemnation, but
the report was.
Brennan, testifying before Congress this week, agreed that ISIS is losing ground in Syria and Iraq and on the defensive there, but then said, look, they are gaining ground in their ability to recruit outside of Iraq and Syria, and said we need to do more. What do we do?
I've consulted for the Department of Homeland Security from 2005 to 2008, working on countering violent extremism programs. As ISIS loses ground in Iraq and Syria, they're doubling down on inspiring terrorism, and their message is no longer, come fight here. Their message is kill where you are. So in the next decade, this is going to be a challenge that we have to face, and we have to come up with better answers than what we are. In this particular case, in Omar Mateen's case, the more we're learning is that he didn't not only had connection with ISIS prior to this, but he actually, after shooting, looked on Twitter to see his attack wasn't really showing up. So he thought of a way, what investigators are looking at is potentially using ISIS so he can get more publicity out of this. It's a very troubling sight because, if this is not terrorism, he's following more of a profile.
How do I turn this into something?
He's looking at more of a profile of a mass shooter.
All right, let me turn to, and I got to go to the side, but something that really struck me was his pre-shooting, he was saying a bunch of anti-gay rhetoric to his father. Now we're learning that he was on gay sites seeking out men. Yeah. There's something there.
Well, for the last 3 years, he's been going in and out of that particular bar. He had a profile on a gay dating website. He had contact with people from that site.
Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Well, that's exactly what investigators are saying. I mean, this is a very complicated picture, and their motives could be many. We just may never know. But as we take a look at social media, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich says the Orlando attack should be reported as an act of war. We need much tougher surveillance. The FBI monitored the killer twice but stopped. This person says, how about much more honest surveillance, as in being allowed to use the term jihadist or radical Islam? This guy says, we need tougher surveillance. Yes, let us start with you. According to, speaking to Newt Gingrich, the FBI should start monitoring hate speech, saying that Newt's saying that type of stuff. And then Master Key Sister says FBI has at their disposal some of the most sophisticated surveillance technology. Why were eyes off of this man?
Well, and we can debate for weeks why the FBI stopped surveilling him when they did, and we'll never know the answer to that. But obviously, they didn't think they had enough.
Right.
And when you don't have enough, you have to stop. That's the way it works in a free country. I want to talk about the term radical jihadist. Donald Trump came out immediately and said this is the president's fault because he won't use the term radical jihadist. The president came out, and that was one of the most scathing speeches I've ever seen a president give, and said somehow, I want to know how somehow if I use the term radical jihadist, all these people are going to go home. I thought that was a pretty good speech. What's the answer? Is if the president just comes out and says radical jihadist, is this all going away?
I think what Donald Trump is saying is what you've heard many people say. The president is afraid to use certain terms, certain words, and if you can't even say the word, you can't even identify the problem, how are we going to find the solution? We're yet to hear from the president what is a firm solution to, we're in a war, and they are infiltrating our soil. We've yet to hear from the president exactly what we're going to do. The fact that he wants to remove jihadists from our vocabulary, the fact that he wants to remove other terms from our vocabulary. How does that stop radical extremists? And so I think what you see from Donald Trump is we're looking at surveillance. We want to toughen our surveillance policies, but the president is saying we can't use certain terms because it's offensive.
What about that? I mean, the president said, look, the term doesn't matter.
Well, the president is being warned by national security experts that by using those terms, you're actually allowing ISIS and other extremists to dominate the space of Islam, that they become leaders of Islam, and therefore it gives them the ability to say, come fight with us, we're the actual leaders of Islam. So he's not doing it not to be offensive to people, he's trying to do it to reduce extremism and radicalism and try to protect the homeland. What's happening is in this political debate, people know that this is what law enforcement is telling him to do, and they know he can't change it, so they're using it as a political fight against him.
All right, thank you. We got to leave it right there. We'll be back in the next hour with two really good topics.
Okay, we look forward to seeing y'all then.